Howdy everyone, and welcome to the Serial Geek TV YouTube channel. My name is James Eatock, and today we're going to take a look at the syndicated series of Spider-Man produced by Marvel Productions in 1981, affectionately known as Spider-Man 81, mistakenly called Spider-Man 5000 on DVD releases as someone in authority decided it would be wise to use the series production code as part of the title. Hey, and with that, let us begin. Throughout the 1981 Spider-Man series, fans of Marvel Comics were often treated to guest appearances from characters that shared the Warcrawler's wonderful universe. Sometimes these appearances would be a part of the story itself, and at other times, characters would make rather random cameos, such as the X-Men appearing on posters in a circus. Okay, so those may not be the most accurate depictions of our favourite group of mutants, but you get my point. These appearances were not the spontaneity of Mihan, the Korean animation studio that Marvel Productions outsourced their animation to. These cameo appearances were in fact the work of the creatively talented staff at Marvel Productions, many of whom grew up with comic books and still had a great fondness for them. To reiterate, the one thing all of these appearances had in common is that they all shared the same comic book universe. However, one particular cameo that surprised everyone occurred in the episode Curiosity Killed the Spider-Man. At one point in the episode, Spider-Man needs to make a hurried phone call and swings to find the nearest phone booth. These were known as the Dark Ages before smartphones. Ooh. As Spidey swoops into shot, we see that a smartly dressed man currently occupies the phone booth. Upon finishing his phone call, the man turns just as Spider-Man lands. The man takes a step back when he sees the Warcrawler, but utters nothing. We are then treated to a close-up of Spider-Man. The camera then pans over to the man in the phone booth and holds for a few seconds. It is at this point we realise the man is none other than Clark Kent, Superman, the Man of Steel, the most powerful man in the universe. No wait, that's someone else. At the time, Superman was appearing in Hanna-Barbera's Challenge of the Super Friends, and, as Clark Kent, sported the exact same coloured suit and tie. As the man departs, Spider-Man enters the telephone booth and muses to himself, "Where have I seen that guy before?" Some of you watching this video may think, okay, yeah, Clark Kent, Superman, that's pretty cool, but this was the very start of the 1980s. Marvel and DC were very much at war back then. Yes, they had worked on a few comic book projects together, but it was an uneasy relationship with numerous, justifiably big, egos involved, especially as the comic book industry was entering one of the most celebrated and financially rewarding decades. The idea of helping one another out was not high on the agenda for either Marvel or DC. For a crossover to legitimately happen on the small screen would have required Marvel, DC, distributors and goodness knows who else wading through a ridiculous amount of legal red tape in order to make it happen. Given that he was overseeing much of what took place at Marvel Productions, Stan Lee would almost certainly have been shown this sequence and probably would have had a wry smile across his face, knowing that it would be hard for DC to claim copyright infringement. I mean, this is just a smartly dressed man with glasses in a telephone booth in New York, right? Probably a rather common sight in the 1980s. Although Clark Kent does not make another cameo, there are two more references to Superman in this particular Spider-Man cartoon. In the episode Dr. Doom, Master of the World, Peter asks out Betty Brant on a date and mentions a new movie about a super guy from another planet who's allergic to green rocks, an obvious reference to the Man of Steel and his weakness to kryptonite. And in the episode The Sidewinder Strikes, Spider-Man yells, "Up, up and away," a reference to the radio show The Adventures of Superman, in which Superman yelled the catchphrase as he took flight. So there you go, this was the closest we comic book fans got to a crossover on TV between Marvel and DC during the 80s. Speaking of the solo Spider-Man series, it's a fact that most people favour Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which was far more fun to watch and a great deal more lighthearted. After all, that series had the great Dan Gilvezan as the voice of Spider-Man, Kathy Garver as the voice of Firestar, and the legendary Frank Welker as the voice of Iceman. The actors' chemistry resulting in some wonderful on-screen camaraderie between the three heroes.
What?
If you had a formula, what would you do to get everybody in New York to try it?
Advertise on television?
No! You get people to breathe it, or eat it,
or drink it. He'll try to put it in the drinking water.
I hate to say it, but the wall crawler's right.
And the city reservoir is right here in the park, just a few blocks away.
Spider friends,
go for it!
Growing up in the 80s, I do remember seeing random episodes of the solo Spider-Man show air on children's BBC, and I would always be somewhat frustrated, as Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was my preferred choice back then. Over the years, I've come to appreciate just how good the solo Spider-Man show is, and one could make the argument that it is more faithful in tone and storytelling to Spider-Man's comic book roots. And speaking of tone, this show has a rather incredible story arc with Doctor Doom that actually leads to one episode having one of the most powerful endings to a Saturday morning cartoon, but that's a video for another time. So that is the end for today. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe, and I shall catch you on the next one, I hope.